Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 517. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot Segulin, the Duke of You-Know, and the elder statesman of the podcast.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be discussing, we're having a longtime friend of the show, actually, Ted Sikora, join us as we discuss his upcoming books, Tap Dance Killer #1 and relaunched Apama #1, that are both going to single issues and are in this month's previews. Besides that, you and I are going to be catching up with Doomsday Clock as we discuss Doomsday Clock issue 3. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network, the League of Comic Book Podcasts, and the InfiniteComics.com podcast partnership. Mr. Segulin, sponsoring this episode is once again, as always, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. What is going on over at DCBService.com?
Well, as you mentioned, we've got Apama, the Undiscovered Animal #1, and Tap Dance Killer #1. Both of these are 30% off, only $2.79. So thank you, DCBS.
I do want to remind everyone that they're a digital partner. Whether you do Comixology or My Digital Comics, make sure to link those accounts to your DCB service account and shop through their portal. You earn 5% of those purchases towards your DCB service order. It helps our sponsor, but also helps out a sponsor who helps other podcasts. DCB Service really has done an amazing job of supporting a wide variety of podcasts. They're part of the podcasting community, so please sponsor them and help them out as well. Over at InStockTrades.com, Jim, I'm really excited about this. Sometimes I miss things, when you're doing your orders during the month. Absolute Wonder Woman by Azzarello and Chang, Volume 2 hardcover. I love Absolute Editions. They're like my collection addiction. I missed this one. I don't know how I missed it. I've got the first one, and it's gorgeous. That artwork needs to be in an Absolute Edition.
Yes.
This is available as part of the Deals of the Week, 50% off, only $62.50 over at InStockTrades.com. Besides that, here's another one I missed. I'm collecting these omnibus hardcovers. I really like them. It's a lot of classic work. I love the classic horror. This is the House of Secrets, the Bronze Age omnibus hardcover. Also 50% off for $62.50. The way I'm looking at this, and it really is the way I justify it, if I were to buy them retail, I'm getting 2 for 1. I'm getting both of those for the same price I would have paid for either of them at retail. So I want to thank you, InStockTrades.com. It's one of the reasons why I check this out weekly. I like to catch the things that I'm missing. So InStockTrades.com is your collected edition source. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Joining us once again is a longtime friend of the show now, Ted Sikora, as now we're talking about Tap Dance Killer #1, which is coming up. And Ted, first of all, welcome back to Raging Bullets.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Now, this one was really interesting for me because obviously for me, it's my relationship with you has been started with Hero Tomorrow. And then Apama, the comic book that came from the movie, but it's kind of become this phenomenon where for some people the comic book has been their first exposure to that world. We've got a spin-off now of a character who is really unique because one of my favorite lines in Tap Dance Killer was the part where, is she a hero, is she a villain? It's complicated. And so often when you say that, that's kind of a cut and dry way of saying she's an anti-hero or something like that. I really felt like that it's complicated line totally fits her, and it's what I love because of the circumstances of her backstory and her origin and her motivations. I don't think you walk away from this, and it's what I find unique about her, thinking that she's either or. It's more of she's like a survivor, and it's kind of unique in seeing this character so differently. Was that intentional? To kind of give her this different sort of edge that she has than other characters, I think, that are out today?
Well, absolutely. We're always trying to do something that's unlike what's already out there. Because I mean, in a way, why bother if there's already a character that's kind of got the same motivations? So it was the way this whole thing evolved was so kind of weird. And if I could go back just a little bit,
sure.
when I was, I do film and comics for a living, and I did this documentary on this theater, Near West Theater in Cleveland, and I was hired to just do like an 8-minute piece, like a fundraiser for them, and it ended up turning into a situation where I just kept shooting and shooting because I was so fascinated, and we ended up making a 90-minute documentary, and I sent it to Milo, the co-writer on Apama, and I said, man, there's really something special about this group. And what's so funny is the theater is opening up right across where Ilya lives in Cleveland. I mean, it's, because Ilya lives at 65th and Detroit Avenue in Cleveland. And this theater was going up 2 blocks over. And I said, wouldn't it be funny if somebody from this theater just kind of flirted with him, asked him to come over and join the cast or to audition, which, Ilya would be horrible at. And we both kind of started kicking this idea around, and it was a lot of fun. And so it just kind of kept evolving, and there's this, before I ever got into film or comics, I wrote this musical, Nothing Like Vaudeville, and it was very, I've always been a comic book fan, so it was very comic book themed characters, and in it is this the mob boss is Sir Terror, Fletcher, who runs this wax museum full of dead people, and then the mob assassin is the tap dance killer. And I thought, what if these characters they get cast in the musical, and then something happens to them that supernatural, they get locked into the role. It's a long way to answer the question, but so now you've got a person, Nikki St. Clair, who is, she is the person who is asked to, she's cast as the tap dance killer, sweetest person you'd ever meet. If you met her, she'd be your best friend, super nice, but she's playing this character that is so dark and disturbing, and when she gets locked into it, it's not just a matter of the Punisher going out for a mission or something. Like, Nikki's kind of fighting this thing in her head a little bit, but she's also not fighting it. She's also just loving it as the ultimate role. As an actress, this is the ultimate thing that she can do.
I actually really liked her initial opening appearance in the role because they weren't very good at it. And you can understand that because your best actors, they get into the heads of their characters and they find that motivation and then to bring that to life. I don't know how bad or good they were at it. Certainly the person who was running the show thought so. And I have a funny feeling no matter how good you were, she was going to find something critical of you anyway. There's also that little edge of, did she plan all along to kind of spike their drinks and make it real, so to speak? Maybe. I really liked that part of the origin where you've got this very sweet person that you're talking about who all of a sudden is really turned into this dark, dual other self of means that were completely out of her control to the point where she doesn't even necessarily remember what she'd been through. That edge, I really felt like I was riding along with her. Like, I saw what was happening to her. I saw her become victimized by this and went along on that journey with her. I saw her kind of left with having to pick up the pieces of all that. I liked that in this first issue, I've read Apama, everything that's been released up to this point. So for me, I knew who this character was walking into this issue. But what I loved is I've been away from it for a little while. I really felt like I didn't need to know anything to enjoy this issue. I felt like it was really fresh and gave me everything as a reader I needed. And I think that's important for new readers listening to this to go, okay, Tap Dance Killer, do I need to have read all of Apama to understand this? Do I need to have read any of her previous appearances? No, you don't. We get to know Nikki actually in a different lens than we ever have before in this book, which I really like. I like that this feels like Nikki's book. We're riding along with Nikki, whereas before I was riding along with Ilya. And I think there is a distinct difference in tone to this book because it's Nikki's book.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was very, a conscious thing that we did that we want this to be an easy entry. There is almost no mention even of the, Apama in it. Not that to say these characters aren't going to cross in Tap Dance Killer at some point, but yeah, I mean, we're starting something new. We're looking for, to develop a new audience to go along with our Apama audience. And yeah, I mean, if we limit ourselves to, you better have read everything Apama first, it's going to be really difficult. So we I'm glad that came through that way, I should say.
You got a really nice balance on this with, how much you reveal, how much there's still a lot of mystery left to give. There's a lot of teasers as to what could possibly come down the line. When, for me, opening this as first introduction to this world, first introduction to Tap Dance Killer, I know who Nikki is. I've got a really good solid groove of who she is, but it wasn't like you gave away everything. I still have a lot of mystery that I'm still, eagerly anticipating what's going on with her. Where's she going? Where is this crew going? Where is, who is the big bad behind all of this? And I like that. I like that I get a good taste. I want more, but you didn't overpower it. You didn't give us too much in the opening.
Oh, thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about the artist. Actually, the artist and colorist. And actually, now, am I reading, you did some of the color work and lettering on this too?
Oh, yeah. Well, so the artist is Nicholas Harrison. And what we did when we started thinking about doing this, we actually put out a call for 2 artists. And because the Regina story, for those not familiar, Regina is Apama's arch nemesis, and she's like this hippie psychedelic flower child cult leader gone wrong. Her origin story I wrote years ago as a screenplay, and we've been shopping that around, and I got to a point where, like, why are we shopping this around trying to make a movie out of it? Why not just turn it into a graphic novel? It's a perfect companion to this world that we've started to set up. It takes place, in 1969, but it is her origin, and so, and I wanted to do this Tap Dance Killer, so I said, well, we'll do a search for 2 different artists at the same time, and we did this on a few different websites, but the one that really worked well was, I believe it's called Digital Webbing, and we got, 200 artists from all over the world, and there were a few guys that were really close to the top, for both books, and a lot of guys wanted to be considered for both. Actually, Nicholas really wanted Bloom, and I didn't think he was. He did a gorgeous Regina. It was on our website. It's on our Facebook page, I should say. But there was another guy that I thought had something, just a little extra magic on the Regina character, and that was Butch Mappa. So he's doing that book, and I know Nicholas was a bit disappointed. I said, "Hey man, why don't you do some sketches of Tap Dance Killer? Because you were so close." And he did. And we started working it out, and I was like, "Man, this is meant to be." He's really got a dynamic style. Is a bit more modern. Obviously Benito's got that classic style on Apama, which we love. But I didn't want to, I wanted this book to have a very different look. He's just been a joy to work with, and he really knocks stuff out.
I think that's, Jim mentioned something about balance earlier, and I think artistically there's a balance here. And what I really love about what he did is I feel like you can connect it to the artwork of her original appearances. So, as a fan, that was great. But then, to your point about there being a different look and tone to this, it does feel very modern, and almost there's a musicality to the book, in the sense that the way that she operates and the singing and her motion and the way she reads people, I love that part. She reads her opponents musically, though, like the way that they move, like their dancing motions and things like that. We talk about fight being like almost like a ballet or a dance, and she is able to read that in a unique way that I think is something that makes her a very cool character. Considering her background story and all that.
Yeah, it's something we're gonna, we're just tip of the iceberg with what that means, as far as there's a scene, I'll kind of explain, where she's in prison and she's been dealing with this guard, and she starts to realize that just the way the guard sways and blinks and tilts her head is something that's just as unique as a fingerprint, and that she starts to almost kind of sense these like a biorhythm connection. And now she can kind of play a counter melody with the way she speaks or something, and this is something that's going to, as she gets to know a person better, they better be on their toes.
One of the things I love about comics, and I always have since my childhood, is the sense that when life gets at its worst for you, you see these characters who find motivation when they shouldn't. And Nikki's world is really, a lot's happening to her that would bring somebody down. And I loved there's this scene where she's in solitary. And she starts dancing, and it just starts, it's the whole tap dancing thing that she does. But it starts to be this thing where it's like she's finding herself and finding that reason to go on in a situation where almost everything's been taken from her. Yet she's still finding things inside herself to keep her going and a motivation, which is really interesting about her because I don't find this yet, and I don't care if down the road it turns into that Nikki's a hero or she's a villain. It's more of I love that right now I don't know what she is, and that's fascinating to me because I feel like she's on this journey of discovery, trying to solve certain mysteries, trying to learn about the world around her because this whole mob world that she's like thrust into that is really victimizing her. I love that part of this journey is what's fascinating me so much is I'm discovering Nikki as kind of Nikki's discovering Nikki. And she motivates me because I'm like, I don't know, man, if this girl can get up and like, find a way to continue on and find some reason to try, I don't know, sort things out, make things right, discover that. How can't I? Because, man, talk about everything going wrong.
Well, break out the tap dance shoes and.
Well, I think that would bring people down if I did.
I would pay money to see that.
I know you would.
That's what I.
Might be putting it back in the bonus of a graphic novel or something. And here's a guy. Here's a fan who got a little carried away. I like her friends. I like that she has a friend. She has a friend in this. I like that there's. I guess what I'm saying is I really enjoy the supporting cast. Whether the supporting cast are people that are sympathetic to her, or they're people who are out to get her. They aren't cookie cutter or flat. You get to know them along the way too. Her friend, she's in a situation where her friend is kind of like, "You're dragging me into this. What are you thinking?" I mean, and there's multiple times where like her friend can like lose everything just by helping her. I really felt that there were some genuine human reactions in this, whether you were dealing with the people that were good guys or bad guys in this. I felt like you got to know them as human beings and with very natural human reactions. How do you get to know your characters when you're developing? Because I think I would assume as a creator, you get like really attached to your main character, Nikki. You're like, okay, this is my motivation for doing this book. I really like her. How do you make yourself get to know the supporting cast, who are people that really help us get to know Nikki and flesh her out in a way? Because I really appreciated the fact that there was not a character that I considered a throwaway in this. I felt like I got to know all of them, and that there's a complex. I almost could do a crime scene type of map of this with everybody's connectivity. Oh, she's connected, to the mob guy who got killed, and that, all these pieces as you're going through. I felt like I was putting pins in the wall as far as the interconnectivity, to basically to her. It was basically this, the 6 Degrees of Nikki game as I was going through.
With Apama, we said early on that there's just no throwaway characters. We don't, that's not. If we have a throwaway character, we've got to do something different. I think there was for us, I think an epiphanic moment, like there was the woman he saved from Helltown in issue 5. I think in a lot of books that would have been the end of it. But then when things get down, he goes to see her, just this woman he saved, and they end up in this really bad relationship, And there's so much drama that can come with that. I think if you do take care with these sort of the smaller role characters. So with Tap Dance Killer, there's another layer of, I wrote these characters back in like the first iteration of Tap Dance Killer was the song I wrote back in 1990. And, Sir Terror, Fletcher, all of those were back in, before 1992. And I've been working on that musical for years. So these characters have been bouncing around in my head for decades, which probably explains a lot of my psychotic problems, I guess. But I've been just chomping at the bit to do a comic with these characters in the back of my mind. And then I always had assumed it would have taken place in the 20s, That's the weird thing about how all this came about in Apama, that these characters are sort of re-envisioned as modern people, but they think they're in the 20s. There's so much fun to that, just the way they play off modern society that I haven't even scratched the surface on. But Sir Terror, he's got one of the old two-hander phone things, and like, I mean, this, he's going to be this villain just chewing somebody out. And it's on one of these classic antique old phones. I mean, that kind of stuff is just so visually fun that I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but it sort of goes along the way of just you really have to know your characters. When I teach some comic book classes, and I do always, we go through these character questionnaires where you got to answer like 100 backstory questions about your character before you even try to write them. Not that we do that with everybody, but it's a great exercise, and I do it quite a bit.
Is it sad? It's got to be incredibly satisfying to see these characters finally on the page and brought to life. Because you're going. I didn't realize that Nikki went. That this went that far back for you. I think it's great that like these characters have kind of persevered. I think it says something about the characters. It's like, do you just say, does a character have legs? Well, yeah, if this is a character that you created back in the 90s and along the way has evolved, and now all of a sudden we're seeing come to life here, that's got to be an incredibly satisfying feeling to say, wow, this actually happened, and look how great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is, and there. I mean, and a lot of it, I have to give a lot of credit to Nicholas too, because we go back and forth with character designs, and he'll come back with something that's just stellar. So it's just to think about it when I was back in the 90s that this character would have her own book set in modern day and all that. I would have never imagined that at all.
Now, with the musical and all that was created for this, now you've performed that, right?
Yes, back in '90. Well, there were a few iterations. So it started as a rock band. Basically, my brother and I we wrote this concept album. Kurt is his name, Kurt Sikora, and we recruited a band. We started doing this show, and it was about a runaway freak that clashes with bizarre mob violence in the 1920s, and it was called Nothing Like Vaudeville. Then in '93, it was actually my mom who, our show was really weird. We would actually hand out programs, but we just would play on a rock set, but we gave people programs that had the story. And I have to admit, a lot of times people kind of looked at us with their heads cocked sideways. It was like we were dressed up with makeup and all this weird stuff. It was like a heavy hard rock band for style-wise anyway. So my mom finds this article in the paper, and it says, this haunted festival is looking for a 15-minute horror show for this haunted festival in Canal Fulton. And I talked to the promoter, and I said, we have this concept album. I could take like a verse, chorus of like 3 or 4 of the songs, and I could write a little script around it, and he went for that idea, and it was this scene that takes place in the Wax Museum where this freak character is kind of terrorized by Fletcher, Sir Terror, and the Tap Dance Killer. That went over so much better than the band ever did, and a lot of people were, kind of comparing it to like a Rocky Horror sort of vibe. We said, all right, let's just turn the whole thing into a musical, and spent a year writing the script. We rented out a theater and put it on at the Fantasy Theater. That was the Nothing Like Vaudeville musical, and then we did a cast album of that. And that got picked up nationally. I kept working on the show for years, just trying to get it, more developed. Because, that first one was our first try at anything in theater. So we had no background whatsoever. And it kept evolving and getting better. And, it got to a point where we started working on Hero Tomorrow, and it got put on the back burner. And then here it has finally come back again.
There's a lot of emotion in this book, and what I mean is you go through a lot of emotional change. There's obviously a lot of action, which you're expecting from a book, especially when the title is Tap Dance Killer. But besides that, the book's not afraid to have a sense of humor while dealing with some very serious issues. There's some great one-on-one character drama where some almost like tearjerker moments between herself and her friend as you're kind of like, seeing a bonding relationship there. It's not afraid to go anywhere. And that's what I really like about it is you talked about potential, for the book and where, it could go in the future and how you're just scratching the surface. And I can see that just because this particular issue, the first issue for Kicking Out of the Starting Gate, I was like, man, like this book really isn't backed into any kind of corner. You can really tell almost any kind of story in this title because of the way that the world's crafted that she's in. And that, to me, added a sense of reality to what was going on here, which is really important to me in a comic, which is, it's a crazy thing to say, you know, when you do fantastical things like you do in comics, but that reality is my connection point where I feel like I'm escaping, I'm transported because this character has become real to me.
Yeah, I'm very glad that comes through, and it is another thing we're very conscious about. Man, when I was at I'll tell you a little story. When I was at New York Comic Con, my friend Henri Campen, who has a book called Yi Sun Shin, really good book. He brought Jim Salicrup to my table. Do you know that name?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was, for those not familiar, he was the editor on Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man during the McFarlane years. And he brings him by and he goes, "Jim, you're going to like this guy's book. Just go ahead and give him your pitch." And I said, "Okay, well, what's really unique about our book?" And he goes, "Stop right there. If it's unique, it's not really unique. You don't need that word. Go on." So he's like critiquing my pitch right out of the gate, which was hilarious. And anyway, I give him the pitch and I give him a copy of the book. And he says, "All right, I'll check it out," you know. And he comes back the next day, sits with me for an hour and gives me the Marvel Comics critique. And it is the most valuable hour of teaching I've ever gotten in my life.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I mean, and he does this amazing Stan Lee voice. I mean, the imitation is uncanny. And so he's as he's giving it to me, he's, you know, because he was working with Stan since he was 17 years old, and he would keep saying, "Well, you know what Stan would have done," and then he'd do the Stan voice. So he goes, "The thing you're doing really well that Stan would love is, like, Ilya's world is so believable." He goes, "You know what Ilya's apartment feels like, and you feel like you are in that." And he said, "That is the thing Stan always was really preaching, is that you have to ground these things in people, in situations where people can relate to it, you know, because you do buy." I mean, I notice even with, you know, Marvel and DC, you know, you'll pick up a book and the character's apartment looks like it was just 3D rendered or something. It doesn't really have any character to it or anything, you know, and so you lose this sort of chance to connect with the reader.
Attention to detail is really important to me. And I've come to appreciate as a reader how much effort that is on the creative team, you know, to put those extra little touches in, that they're things that I appreciate because I know they take time. I know that they're choices too, because, you know, you're trying to get these books done in a timely fashion while at the same time making the right choices as far as how to utilize your time to make it happen. And it's really nice when you see a book that makes the correct choices to frame things up in a way that transport you. And you're right, there's certain details where I want to feel like certain spaces are places I can tangibly touch and see. Especially in our case, you know, I mean, Jim and I are both Cleveland natives, and these books are, you know, taking place in the world we've grown up in, which I love. I mean, I kind of get now. You mentioned Marvel, and I think it's so appropriate because Marvel always has had such a New York vibe to it, you know, purposefully, you know, because that's the background of it. It's really nice to see this universe growing out of Cleveland and expanding out of Cleveland, feeling like there's like a new Cleveland mythos that's coming about in these books that I'm really digging as I'm going through, because we're mentioning there's places being mentioned in there in the way that certain landmarks are mentioned in Marvel books from the New York end, that they mean something to me. And I'm like, oh, I get it. I totally get it now, what they were doing with that, because I can connect with this in a way that I always loved the fact that I felt like I was in New York in Marvel books. I love even more that in these books I feel like, man, I'm running around Cleveland with these characters. This is sweet.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of fun, you know, and we've said from the outset that Cleveland was such a nice blank canvas for this kind of story. We thought, you know, that you know, in our world, there are no superheroes, so all of this is happening for the first time, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun to play with that sort of energy.
One of the things I'm really appreciate and really enjoy is when I'm reading a book, if I can get this flat panel. This flat page can actually show motion. It can show the movement. It can show the flow. And that's one thing you guys really did just in the fight sequences and the dance sequence and the various just the fluidity of her movements is something that I really just like how it's going, because she's got a couple really cool fight sequences. And one thing I always wonder is how much, when you're crafting the story, you're laying out the script and you're laying out the words and whatnot, and you guys are working, this is a good collaboration between you and the art and etc. How much do you guys, is it when you're initially, how much is it on the fly? Is there back and forth? How does that kind of stuff get crafted?
We do go back and forth, especially with this first issue, and us, having worked together, this is our first time. So, I'd say, a good half of the panels, as far as like fight choreography, are probably right what he did the first, his first pass was excellent. And I mean, the other ones, I was like, I'm going to send you some dance moves, like dance kicks. And I want you to kind of incorporate a dancer's style into the way she kicks somebody, or, Bob Fosse kind of influence with the way she stands and struts. And I mean, there's a lot of kind of visually fun things we can do with this character because of that.
It came across nicely, by the way. I like that. It's kind of like, the running joke, some people with dance fighting, you think either, West Side Story, where if you try that, you'd get hurt,
Right.
Or like the one movie, I don't know if you saw Jim Cotta.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
It was the 80s it was a 80s U.S. gymnast movie where he took gymnastics and combined it into martial arts, and it's a really bad movie, but the fight sequences look really cool. I really dig the fight sequences. The plot and the acting, not so much, but just for the physical motion, it was kind of a neat thing. So as I was reading this, I was kind of getting that same kind of vibe with the fluidity and the motion, especially because she is a dancer, because she's got the dance skills, but she's got the combat skills as well. So it's kind of a neat to get this in front of me. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, she considers every fight sort of a performance. It's sort of there's something that I think there's a lot of. I've pulled so many references for future issues and things, and I'm really excited to get some of this stuff out that exploits that even further.
I do want to tell everybody listening that this book is currently being solicited right now. So please go to your local comic shop and tell them to order it. Our sponsor, DCBService.com, has it right now. Jim and I have been doing it as an ad on last episode. We did it as the ad for this episode. So please make sure to check this out. Besides this book, you're also re-releasing now as a monthly comic, Apama, and it's remastered. What is it? What does remastered mean? Like, what is? Because I always love this. I love director's cuts and things like that being released now in comics, which has become very popular. And what I love about that is a chance to kind of go back and either put in some things that you want to do before, clean things up, or do whatever. What does remastered mean in this case? Because it's different every single time, and I like it in every scenario. What are you guys doing with it?
Well, when Apama first came out, it was a spin-off of our movie. And, the movie Hero Tomorrow was about a guy who has an idea for a superhero. He can't get it published. His girlfriend makes him a costume of his own character, and he starts running around in the costume trying to fight crime, but with no superpowers. So we wanted to do a companion on our website piece, So we said, what if we did the book that was in his head? And that was going to be just this thing we would put up on our website for free, and it'll be the origin of Apama, but it's not about a struggling comic creator. It's about this ice cream truck driver who becomes a superhero and who discovers the Apama spirit force. Basically the most savage creature mankind has never known. So we did that back in 2010, I think. And, we've been doing this now for a while, and we've certainly, learned some things along the way with doing comics. And we thought, if we're going to do single issues, let's go back and just kind of, touch things up. It's not going to be dramatic, drastic changes, but yeah, the lettering is there's a new font that's applied to the whole thing. There is, some new coloring in sections, and even the dialogue at times we did little tweaks here and there. We didn't go in and we always joke like we're not going to George Lucas Apama, like that would be ridiculous to, but it's sort of, I just can't see, if we're going to put the effort into doing single issues, why not just kind of enhance what we feel like could be a little bit better. But if we're on the fence, we're absolutely leaving it the way it was. But if Milo and I both agree that there's a better choice with hindsight, we're going to take it. I should also say the reason we're doing single issues at all on Apama is because we did this in such an ass-backwards way. You know, we made so we did that first single issue, then we were selling digitally through Comixology, and then we did a collection of the first 5 issues, and then we had the brilliant idea with Volume 2 to just hold back all 6 issues, 6 through 11, and we'll release it like a Netflix series all at once in a collection. And we did that, but now it's like, and I said brilliant in quotes because now we're set up in a way that Apama 12 is already fully illustrated, but we can't really release it until we get 5 issues together for another collection. Mm-hmm. And it starts to feel like this doesn't make any sense. And we could call Apama 12 Apama 1, which would be some form of a reboot, which we despise, and we would rather die than do that. So the only thing that gets the horse before the cart is if we just release these books monthly and get up to speed. And then, it'll take us a year to get caught up, but that's all right. We got Tap Dance Killer coming out. We got Bloom coming up. And hopefully a whole new audience will give Apama a try that wouldn't necessarily, try a collection of an indie. This way, too, people have been asking me, so what about the collectability of these? And I don't have a good answer on that, because, this technically is the first single issue appearance of Apama. The single issues are what are collectible. You don't really see people collecting trades very often. Mm-hmm. Issue 5 is going to be the first appearance of Regina, and so it will go. And we're doing a limited print run so that, it's not like, with a lot of indies, they'll just keep printing as they run out. But like when Apama 1's gone, that's it. So we're not going to overprint these. And we are hoping that we can kind of, make some money for the people who pick it up.
That's great. I like that, actually. We're doing a limited print run. We're, focusing on collectability, having that kind of fun piece in there. It feels like you're part of something special then, which is a unique experience too. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the re-release of it. It's funny how it's like visiting with an old friend, in the sense, because it's been a little bit. It's a chance to like kind of revisit, kind of go through it again and enjoy it. Because I do that with my favorite movies. It's like time to come back, and especially with now seeing Tap Dance Killer, what I did was I went back to my hardcovers and started pulling them out and rereading. And it was interesting to start rereading those again after having read Tap Dance Killer, because I'm coming at it from a different angle, which seems to be the way I'm doing things with your work. Because it was the film first, and then I was reading the comic, and then the comic drew me back into the re-release of the film, and I was now watching the film differently because I've been reading the comic, and I'm enjoying that. I really love this universe because it is something I don't know any other comic universe that has a film that's linked, kind of spun out of an idea that was in the film, but now has exploded with so much content and grown so far beyond like its original intention. It's almost like now when you watch the film's almost like a companion to the comic too, in a new life. You know what I mean? I like watching it from both angles. It's just kind of a unique universe. And I don't know any other comic universe that I'm reading. I've been reading comics since I was a kid. I don't know anything else that hits me this way.
There's also in the movie now, because the name of our company, and we really haven't pushed the name of our company until this past, this push with these 2 books, but it is Hero Tomorrow Comics, which is the same name as the comic shop in the movie. But also, if you watch the movie closely, there are flyers for a Tap Dance Killer comic book, and that was because when we were renting out the store, we needed to fill it with stuff that we were licensed to show, and we still needed some poster coverage. So I took out my old band flyer, colored it, made it look like a faux comic book cover, and it's Tap Dance Killer. It's a guy, as the character. But yeah, it seems like the further we go, the more Easter eggs pop up in Hero Tomorrow, and none of that was really by design.
That's really cool, though. I like when things kind of take on a life of their own. I think somehow there's something far more organic when ideas kind of carry you themselves, if that makes sense. And because, it is. I really, one of the best things about Tap Dance Killer was its limitless possibilities. I mean, it's not a book that's pigeonholed in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's true of the Apama universe in general. It's got a lot of latitude to be able to just tell a variety of different stories in a way that doesn't feel forced. The emotions of Tap Dance Killer was the thing I loved the most about it was the fact that I was taken on this really emotional journey with this real person. Every emotion that happened in this were tied to these events that were happening through her. And I felt like I got to know her like any other complex person. And I think it was fitting that the issue started off with that for a very different reason and kind of like trying to pin down if she was a hero or a villain. And I still don't feel like that... If I sat down with her after this issue, she wouldn't be able to tell you that either, because she would say to you, "That's not what I'm doing here." And I like that. I really like that about her. I felt like I could have a conversation with her at the end. Guys, is there anything else that you want to mention about either of these books right now? I'd really like to do is do a follow-up on this where we can get there's some things that we have to leave out this time that I want to talk about after the books are released where we can just kind of let it go crazy. And really in that conversation tease where we go from here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll come back anytime. So just the name of the company is Hero Tomorrow Comics, which sometimes is needed to look it up in the preview guide. And our Facebook page is facebook.com/Hero Tomorrow. And that's now we've kind of changed the name of the movie site. It has been taken over by the comic book site. So it was getting complicated with Facebook pages where I had one for Tap Dance Killer, I had one for Apama, I had one for Hero Tomorrow the movie, and now they're all under the Hero Tomorrow umbrella, which is much easier.
Sure.
So,
And we'll have links to all of that in our show notes. For anybody that's looking for that, the show notes are always up on our website as well, so feel free to click on those show notes and get the links from there. Make sure to pre-order Tap Dance Killer and Apama this month and support Ted's work. And honestly, support the fact we're going to have a follow-up conversation on both. Because I'd really like to be able to talk spoilery about both issues when they're released and really enjoy that with our listening audience. So, Ted, we'll definitely have you back for that piece.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
You filthy criminals.
Our next discussion this episode is going to be of Doomsday Clock number 3. Jeff Johns is the writer. Gary Frank is the illustrator. Brad Anderson is the colorist. Rob Lay on letters. Amy Brockway Metcalf, back matter design. Gary Frank and Brad Anderson, cover and variant cover. Amadeo Turaturo is the associate editor. Brian Cunningham is the editor. Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster by special arrangement with the Jerry Siegel family. And apologies for butchering the name for the back matter design, because I'm assuming that's the content that we're reading in the back, and I really am loving that part of this book. So we're 3 issues in now, Jim, to Doomsday Clock, and there have been some real big surprises in this one. So we know for a fact now that is the comedian.
Yes.
I mean, not like a resurrected comedian or anything like that. He was taken out of time at the moment of his falling and dropped into a lake in the DC universe. So he was brought back at that moment with Dr. Manhattan. And that led to one of the coolest, because now knowing that it was him, I was kind of like, I was torn at the end of last issue. I'm like, I don't know if I want it to be him. I don't know if they wanted to mess with it, until I knew it was him. And then I'm like, this is awesome. Because the fight broke out, and I'm like, I love every bit of this, because he's still the same slime ball that we know from that universe, but yet he's comparing himself now to everything that Veet did after him.
Yeah.
And he's like, you think I'm bad? Look at what you did. And I love this. The whole battle by the window, everything about this opening was, to me, what I thought I didn't want until I got it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I do want this. And I want it bad. And it's fun. Where were you at on this?
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Yeah, I dig this. Again, it was one of those things that you don't know what you're getting until you're getting it. So yes, this is the comedian, but the thing I always do wonder is how much of this is really them. These are the creations by Dr. Manhattan of them. Now, can you say it's truly him, or can you say it's Dr. Manhattan's interpretation of who?
How is it? Wait, I guess you and I are seeing that differently. And so I really want to see how you're seeing it. How are you seeing it as a Dr. Manhattan creation if at the moment of his death, he was yanked out of that world and dropped into ours? Okay, so Dr. Manhattan didn't create him. He existed there, and he pulled...
A body got buried in the Watchmen universe. So he did impact. Now, whether we're going to see later the impact at a later point in time or not, I'm not sure. I kind of took it that he did a photocopy. And this is like a copy of who was the comedian.
But, see, I took it as he changed the Watchmen universe because he yanked him out of time, just like he changed ours. I mean, we're seeing him change the DC universe in major ways because he's been the puppet master here. So, didn't he just do the same thing to the Watchmen universe by yanking him out? I don't know. Let me clarify that, too.
Very easily could be exactly that. Because, you look at the opening sequence when he's falling, there is no splatter on the sidewalk.
Sure.
So maybe he did pull him out before the splatter. Maybe this is the real, this is the absolute real comedian who never impacted. But you think back to the book, there is an impact. And, there's ramifications after he dies that would never have occurred if he hadn't died.
But couldn't it be that they... Yeah, everything you're saying is correct. Yes, I agree with you, but that's part of the head game of time. And here's the thing: who's to say that Manhattan can't, after this, drop him back in again?
Right. The loop can be closed. Doomsday Clock. We could see the splat. We could see everything get put back, and it would happen then. So there is that whole thing with time and with Manhattan manipulating and all that. So this is one of those things where I would have no problems with this being, a copy. I would have no problems with this being the real deal.
I'm right now going to say that I feel this is not a copy. I feel this is him yanked out, but I want to say that I'm speculating like you are. So I'm not saying it in the sense like, Jim, you're wrong. I'm saying this is where my head's at as I'm reading this right now. So it really is from that frame set. There might be other people listening to this right now who have their own idea. It's one of the things I love about time travel when it's brought in, or playing with time or whatever, because this isn't as simple. He didn't get into a time ship or anything like that. He was actually yanked out of a moment in time. In whatever fashion we're talking about here, whether it is your copy or this is really him, that's irrelevant. He was plopped into this moment. It's interesting when you talk about time like this, because if I'm right on this, and it doesn't really matter to me, because I'm enjoying this story, I'm invested. So it's funny, as you're talking this through, I'm like, this is an interesting debate, because I think people listening might have had their own idea on what happened here. I'm sure there's validity to all of them, where you can justify their arguments. I love this kind of stuff because, in my case, you have to close the loop somewhere, or else you've changed time in the Watchmen universe. And which I'm also perfectly fine with. But what happens with time travel with me is I get interested in the ramifications and I want to see them. So I don't know where this is going to go. I see your point, and I don't really have any urge to discredit it. It's a possibility here. There's something about the way this scene was written and played out for me with this ballet between the two of them that I would feel something was taken away if it was a copy. Just because I really felt like this was really Blake versus Veidt. And that's just my take on it, not a criticism of what you're saying. I loved this battle. I loved seeing it between the two. And I guess I shouldn't say that. I think if I found out it was a clone, fine, okay. That's just as valid. The battle in the beginning was really great. Because what we got to see is what made the two of them, at the time, when they were a team, and part of that team, such a good team. Veidt, his acrobatic move there, he literally was falling to his death. Managed to do an acrobatic move where he flipped over to the other side because of that trained, honed perfection. Landed in a way that if circumstances had been different, he would have been dead. Because if he didn't land on that hotel balcony, the hotel apron, the umbrella, whatever. It went and broke his fall. I love, though, that as he was falling, he protected that little pet of his the entire time. There was something so cool about the way that was written that so fit him because that was his creation. And so totally would be something that he would protect in that way, leading to, I thought this was such a great Bond movie opening to this issue. Because I always love that about the Bond movies, when you get that segment that is like this deep, contained, beginning to end action sequence where you see everything you need to see from that particular sequence. Yeah, it leaves ramifications for the future of this issue and future issues moving forward, and I want to see all those, but it really was this kind of cool action sequence. Then they took me to the piece that I really wanted to see this issue, which is Batman and Rorschach, because I wanted to see so much how this played out, and it really is. It's probably the key focal point of this issue. We get a lot of other things that I really want to discuss, but this is like the big event in this one, because you see him reaching out to Batman, who he thinks is nuts, and Batman having conversations with him, and we're not getting too much of a reaction on how Batman feels about this guy at this point, other than the fact that the guy's broken into the cave. He's trying to determine who he is. I love that he acknowledges the mask keeps changing. He's the detective analyzing him. They're both in many ways analyzing each other and getting it wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's not that Batman's getting it wrong. It's you're being handed that journal and being asked to believe a story a conspiracy story about an alien creature in another world that fell apart because of it. It's a heck of a fiction to believe in. And believing that the guy standing in front of you, who firmly believes he came from that world, is legit. Mm-hmm. I'm floored by this one, because at the end I was like, and I know I'm jumping ahead because we're going to have to talk about a lot of these sequences here, but I found myself going, I get why Batman did what he did. I don't agree with it because I know who this guy really is, but I get why Batman reacted the way he did, and it's so interesting. I don't think it's the end of the story by far, and I think Batman is going to, on his own, discover his mistake. But I really loved that I wasn't sitting here going, well, gee, shouldn't the world's greatest detective figure this out? No, I think the world's greatest detective recognized a potential psychological threat and tried to put him in a place where he could get some help. It is funny that he thinks of Arkham, though, as a place to get help.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on over there, and to be honest, I think Batman accurately assessed Rorschach that he is crazy, that he is dangerous, and he should be locked up. Everybody, I think, anybody who's ever had any long-term run-ins with him will say that he is crazy. Now, is he crazy good or is he crazy evil? I think that's the big difference. And right now, Bruce doesn't know he's crazy good, not crazy evil. But he definitely is 100% touched in the head. And he definitely should not be on his own, left unaccounted for. So I was glad how they ended this. I loved how completely, and it was absolutely perfect setup. Didn't need to fight Rorschach, didn't need to punch him, just said, I know where he is, I've checked anomalies. Rorschach's completely buying it. Walks him right into Arkham, locks him in a cell. And I was like, man, that is perfect. That is the greatest ending right there. I cheered for that ending because I thought it was absolutely just, for me, it fit Batman to a T. He didn't need to beat up Rorschach. He didn't need to fight him. All he needed to do was get him in a secured place, and he did. Done. Now he can go on his way. Issue 4, he can start doing the full investigation, see what's what. Maybe along the ways he'll realize Rorschach's not a bad guy and we'll get him out. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen, but Rorschach may escape from Arkham. Escaping from Arkham is not completely impossible. We've seen it done a lot. And, Rorschach may be kind of someone who's got enough resources. We don't know this Rorschach yet. We don't really know what kind of resources he has, what he's able to what he's capable of. So again, I absolutely loved it. I even their dialogue and their interactions in the cave was awesome. Just that, analysis and who they were, and the way Bruce completely got Rorschach to drop his defenses was absolutely perfect. This for me was a great use of strategery by the Bat.
I'm going to choose to ignore that. I do. I do think we start to learn a little bit about this Rorschach, knowing where he was at the time, how he was really came face to face with the creature in question. And I love that hanging from his vehicle mirror is a little decoration of Veet's creature. I thought that was a nice little attention to detail that would be something, when he's driving a Veet car, because it's a Veet car, you actually see it on the where the horn would be on there, that it was a Veet vehicle. I just loved those little attentions to detail that kind of shifted between worlds. There's so much in this issue that I really enjoyed, because it covers a lot. I do think we get kind of our own idea on where one of the places Dr. Manhattan's been. I think I want to jump to one thing first, the Joker. We didn't see the Joker in this issue, but we felt his presence with Marionette and the Mime as they show up in one of the Jokers at a bar that really is Joker territory. And the two of them kind of take over the scene. I love that we got the idea, realize now that the Mime has powers. and when he points a gun at somebody, a finger at somebody, it's not fake. He's going to shoot him. And more than one person. I didn't know that was the case. I was totally shocked by that. I should know that. I think, it's one of those things where I've forgotten the nature of this character. And I really loved the surprise of that. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, yay. How cool is that? And as she's cheering him on, you're pulling out the knives now, baby. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, what is going on here? It really added a sense of danger for these two and made me more and more want to see him with the Joker. The reason why I want to mention the Joker in particular, I think this is something that DC's doing well in recent years. I think the Joker became overexposed for a while, where it seemed like the Joker was appearing in everything. If there was a villain who came on the scene, the Joker would show up and become a sidekick or some kind of foil or some kind of comic relief. And in some ways he got diminished as being this more comic relief character than a real danger. You know what I mean? It was like, okay, yeah, he's Batman's most famous rogue, but Batman always puts him behind bars, and we always have this sequence with him. Now he's become more of an enigma in the way that they're using him. And when he appears, I'm genuinely excited for it. The stories have major impact. So I like in this one, I'm like, we don't have a Joker that's overexposed right now. We haven't seen him in a while. Other than the fact that we know that there's supposed to be multiple Jokers, but we really haven't seen the Joker in substance in quite some time. I'm anxious to see him in this. I want to see him in this. I want to see them react to him. I want to see what the Joker is like when he's dealing with these two. Because these two really, quite frankly, the three of them could have been triplets. I couldn't see a more natural and insane team up.
Now here's my question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the guns are invisible or he's got meta powers? Because I'm taking it that the guns are invisible.
Where's he keeping them?
What?
Where's he keeping them?
In the invisible holster.
Where's that at? I didn't see him reach for a holster.
Remember when they showed his locker?
Okay.
Last issue, and he reaches in and puts it out, and then they show him connecting a belt, a holster on his waist. I'm taking that these things are invisible, and here's why I say that. Okay. Unless it's one of those things where he really, really believes. You see the smoke, and you see kind of when the gun flashes, kind of a silhouette of a pistol.
Wow. I don't know. Here's the thing. Everything you're saying to me makes sense. There's another part of me that thinks he's got meta powers. But yet, I don't know. I actually, here's the thing. I like the mystery of this.
Yes. Oh, God, yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I really quite like that. I want to know more. It's funny. I'm surprised I haven't really done a search on him to see, historically what the character has had in the past. I know I've read about him before in something. And I know that's very vague. There was a lot of stuff that came out to support Watchmen over the years, including like a role-playing game piece and things like that. And I don't know what I read where about this character, but I'm more familiar with him than just this story, and I don't know the answer to that question. And I think that's just really, being honest, Jim, it's an issue of time. I want to know more, but I'm kind of enjoying this ride. And I know that they're going to explain to me in this story everything I need to know. I guess I'm, in a weird way, I'm just enjoying this ride for what they're giving me, which is unusual. The only thing I've looked up for this episode as I was going through is just making sure I got everybody's names right. Because this is my honest experience with this ride. In a weird way, some characters I feel like this overwhelming need, I need to look it up. I need to know right now. I don't with this, and it's strange. I'm really enjoying learning about these characters through organic experiences. Like, I learned something new here that I may have known at one time, I may not have known. I don't care. Because in what it could be, sometimes you read so many comics and learn about so many characters, you're connecting this character with somebody else. I could be connecting this character with another character I read at some point in time. That's where my head's at, because it's not the first time we've seen characters put on face paint in comics. So, I mean, I could be connecting this character with somebody else in my meta thing, and that's fine. It's so interesting. This story, one of the best compliments I can give this story is, I haven't felt the need to go back and look up much. Like, I didn't feel the need to pull out Watchmen during this and start looking through it. And I'm not faulting anybody who does. I think we're all having different experiences, and I think part of the point of our discussions on this show is just to share ours. I've really just been enjoying this issue by issue. I've reread issues to wrap my head around what they're doing in them, as far as what my speculation is. But I haven't felt the need to go back and do a lot of research for this. I just want to discover it along the way as a reader. That's probably, in a weird way, from me, the best compliment I can give this story is I'm really enjoying the ride. And I'm not saying when you do research for it, you aren't. You are. And somebody could be listening to this and going, you don't understand, I reread Watchmen because of this. And I've got the role-playing game. I pulled out stuff. Yes, cool. That means that this experience drove you to that, and you're loving it. So I don't think there's a wrong experience. It's just more of, for me on this one, I'm not feeling that need. And I do in other stories, and I enjoy them just as much. This is just a weird one for me, because I'm usually that guy. I'm usually the guy that, I've got to read everything, and I need to know every background story, and I'm going to go do it. That's me. So, I mean, I'm not faulting anybody who does that. I have that kind of issue. This one is unique. I don't know. How are you reading this? Are you looking up stuff? No. Trying to get to know characters?
I've been just reading this and rereading this, and it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to risk any spoilers on this. I really just want to be surprised as the page unfolds. Like, again, of course we're doing spoilers heavy on this episode, but I think I would have been. I think it would have been a little miffed or enjoyed less if I had known the spoiler of how Batman deals with Rorschach or known about the gun, ahead of time. So I don't want to know anything about them. And what they're going to tell me is what I'm learning, and I'm absolutely loving these characters. Started off as what the heck to, oh my God, these are awesome. They're both, both the crazy meets the crazy, and I want to see them with the Joker, especially that fight sequence. The ballet of death that they did. Again, well choreographed. You can tell to him this is his performance. But then when she gets involved in the mix with that whatever that cutting thread she uses, slices the gun in half, and on the upstroke, then on the downstroke, cuts the guy's hand off. Then on the final coup de grace, let's take the top of his head off. You've got pretty eyes. I was like, oh my God, she is awesome. I want to see these. I want to see them with the Joker. I want to see how they deal with the Joker. I want to see how the Joker deals with them, because in a way, sometimes he doesn't like crazy. He doesn't like people who are crazier than he is, because it's the whole question, is the Joker crazy? Is he crazy like a fox? Is he something else in between? And the same can kind of be said for them, though I'm leaning more towards they are crazy, as opposed to crazy like a fox. I don't think this is an act. I don't think this is a portrayal. This is who they are. They're touched in the head. And I think, it's going to make for an interesting experience. And so for me, I'm not doing any reading just because outside of this, I don't want to risk spoiling anything.
Gary Frank did work for Top Cow, and it was JMS Straczynski, who did Babylon 5. He did Midnight Nation over there, and I really fell in love with his work there. And I loved his work on Supergirl with Peter David, Incredible Hulk with Peter David, and then everything afterwards. He started to become an artist that I just really loved the visual storytelling. I loved the way he worked with writers. It just became a name that I knew. So this is one of those stories where when Gary Frank was on it, I'm captivated. I love the detail in the panels. I love the artwork. I love that he just comes on board of really big projects now. It's an artist who I've always enjoyed, and I've always felt like has been on impactful runs of books that I've enjoyed. And to see Gary Frank on this, I think it's one of the reasons why I'm just enjoying this ride. This is an artist who I really like, a writer who I really like. I love both of these creators. And just the whole creative team is just really doing such an amazing job with this. And I love that they're playing with tools that I don't feel like, to the point of the comedian discussion earlier, I don't feel this is in any way, shape, or form taking anything away from the work that Watchmen was. Watchmen still holds that place for me. I will still read it as a contained 12-issue miniseries and enjoy it as the event that it was. I think what they've done is taken that and, it's when you take a look at things like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen that Alan Moore has done, where he's taken characters from, famous literature and put them all together in a team-up book, done something unique, put his own stamp on those characters in a way that somebody else could do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen years from now, and I'll probably love it because I love the characters and I love the concept, but I'm always going to say that Alan Moore's work was Alan Moore's work and contained and, enjoyed that piece. I'm completely cool with that. This is a great example of that. I don't look at this as some kind of smack to the face of the work that Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons did. I think that work stands on its own. This is just something new. And they're doing something that nobody's ever done before in the sense that we've dropped them into the DC universe in reaction to what happened to their world, and we're seeing how they react to our world, a world that has been changed by their big bad. Now, one of the places he's been, right, from this issue? Dr. Manhattan?
No. What are you talking about?
Did you read the bit in the back?
Yeah.
He's the detective in the film. Because remember when they said he, quote-unquote, died? He was bludgeoned to death? He had a secret room with clocks and things like that in it? I don't think he died. I think he faked his death just to vanish. That's Dr. Manhattan.
I didn't.
Remember back in Watchmen?
Now that you say it, I'm kicking myself because I didn't realize that.
That's him.
It's him. Oh, my God.
That's one of the places he's been. So he's living in this world in some capacity.
Now, yeah, you're blowing my mind. I didn't realize that. I was sitting there, I was trying to figure out why they were putting that in there, and then I saw it didn't dawn on me. It didn't dawn on me. But of course, the room with the clocks. Duh.
And his whole backstory was made up.
Yes.
His parents didn't exist. Somebody was blackmailing him what happened was somebody discovered his secret. So he had to vanish, which is why he faked his death. Because he could no longer live that life.
Dang it. Oh, man. That's cool.
So the whole movie sequence, we've actually been watching, we've been reading Dr. Manhattan in this. He was in the movies. He was the actor. So that wasn't a throwaway. It's another layer to it. What I love about that, and why I'm mentioning it right now, is the backup pieces. I love that they are important to the main story.
Yeah.
And I love that they were clues that were left there to make you go, wow. Now, here's a catch with that. If you hadn't read Watchmen, you wouldn't know that.
Right.
Except you might start to suspect things by the fact that, okay, this guy was killed. His whole backstory was made up. Is that the guy they're looking for? And I could see somebody who maybe hasn't read Watchmen and this is the first exposure to these characters kind of going, all right, secret room, secret life, all that kind of thing. Maybe it is that guy. I could see that being a logic leap for this too. But when I was reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is super cool. That's Dr. Manhattan on the screen. Maybe he always wanted to be an actor and he's living out that fantasy. I don't know. But I thought that was really great how that sequence played out. I can't wait to see more. Where's John now?
Now, in the nursing home, Mr. Thunder, who is that?
Johnny Thunder. He's the one with the Thunderbolt from JSA.
Okay.
So he doesn't remember.
How do you think he's connected to all this?
Well, remember in the Flash story with Doomsday Clock? I mean, a Flash story. It wasn't called Doomsday Clock. Why am I forgetting?
The button.
The button. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Remember, we saw Jay Garrick come back in, then he was yanked away instantly. I think Dr. Manhattan got rid of the JSA, and the only person that's still around is Johnny Thunder. Or I don't know where they're at, but there was something alluded to that they've been forgotten. I think Johnny Thunder's the key to unlocking that. I think this story is going to give us back the JSA, and Johnny Thunder's the key to it. Because the Thunderbolt is an entity that could be a foil for Dr. Manhattan in this, and could bring them back. So I can't wait to see where this Johnny Thunder... I'm with you. I'm reading that because you see him like he's lost a lost soul. Like he almost like the lights are on, but nobody's home.
Yeah.
But I think there's more to it than that. I think there's that part of him that knows something's wrong. He can't quite put his handle on it yet. I think he's longing for something and he doesn't know what it is yet. At some point in time, something is going to click. Something is going to make him remember. And when he remembers, oh boy, is it going to be good.
Yeah, see, the Johnny Thunder, Thunderbolt, all that, I have vague knowledge on them. Vague. Because again, my JSA stuff really wasn't the classic JSA, it was the modern revamps.
True. And then there was a different Thunderbolt. It was the Jakeem.
Yeah, it was the kid, and he had it in the pen.
But remember, Jakeem's Thunderbolt was a combination of the Thunderbolt and Johnny. Remember the Thunderbolt was a guy, an older guy? Jakeem's...
I don't remember. I'm trying to remember, but it's been so long since I've read that stuff that...
Jakeem's Thunderbolt was a combination of Johnny and the Thunderbolt.
Okay.
So, I don't think we're going to get Jakeem Thunder back from this. I think what we're going to get back from this is we're going to get Johnny Thunder and the Thunderbolt. And I think we're going to get the classic JSA back. I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know. And honestly, I love that. In a weird way, I love that there's so much mystery to this. Here's the thing. Any JSA tease for me right now has me salivating. The button had me salivating with Jay Garrick. This has me... Like, Johnny Thunder standing there looking sad out a window was one of the coolest bits of this for me. Because it's Johnny Thunder. And, I mean, I wanna see where that goes. Because you know why? It's Jeff Johns. And nothing Jeff Johns does is a throwaway. Those things are put there for a reason. You know this is going to lead to something big. What a great story.
Now, the anti-Bat and anti-Superman sentiment. Again, it's going back to the Watchmen universe had that whole anti-vigilante movement. And now we're seeing it more in the DC universe. Part of me was wondering that someone from the Watchmen universe is behind that. But I can't see John doing that because John created this universe or manipulated this universe or whatever he did with this universe. So
is that going to be the justification? Is that going to be the justification, though? I think you're onto something. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you were done. I apologize. I think you're onto something there. It's funny as you were saying that, I was just nodding to myself. Yes, Jim, you're on something here. I don't think it was somebody else that's causing it. My feeling is I think John tried to craft a better world. Like, he came here to try and fix things in a way that he couldn't in his world and ultimately created his world. So I think you are hitting something that is going to be a major moral justification here. His changes that he made to the DC universe in many ways has caused this. Whereas this was a universe that was already the world that he wanted, the perfect world that he... one of the things about DC is it's bright. These characters have that kind of... You say it best with Superman, with the dun-da-da moments. One of the criticisms in the New 52 has been that we haven't had that dun-da-da Superman. We've got him back. And that's not... I like the New 52 Superman a lot. I was a big fan. But I'm seeing now in this Superman that we have now with his family and things like that, the dun-da-da Superman. And I think it's no accident that the ultimate battle in this is going to be between Superman and Dr. Manhattan. And I don't think it's going to... I mean, obviously... It's because it's magic and powers and things like that. I don't know that it's going to be an issue of Superman physically beating Dr. Manhattan as much as morally. ideologically going toe-to-toe with him. Because he's the only one here right now, well, I guess aside from Wally, from the previous universe. And he remembers that, well, I don't know what he remembers now. Because we've kind of folded everything back in together. I don't know what he remembers anymore. But he is, the one that seemed to have survived the whole thing. And I can't wait to see where I want to see the two of them together in the worst way.
And
go ahead.
And I agree with you that it's not. There's no way it can be a physical battle, because as tough as Soup is, he's got no chance against Manhattan. This is going to be as you said, a mental battle. This is going to be a moral battle. And part of the interesting thing with bringing in this Rorschach, and bringing in, Mime and what's her name, because he was one of their moral dilemmas. And they've got even our buddy Comedian, there was a couple moral dilemma moments that Comedian triggered in Dr. Manhattan. Think back to when he was in Vietnam and the Comedian killed the woman who was pregnant, and Comedian called him on it saying, "Hey, Doc, you could have stopped me. You knew what I was going to do. You could have turned those bullets into, air, and you could have spared that woman, but you just let it happen." And I think all these pieces are going to be that final, the attempt to finally push Manhattan over, or bring Manhattan back to their universe. And we could end up seeing a complete revert back to what this was. Or I don't think we're going to get a complete reboot of the new 52 universe. I think we're going to get something in between. I think the Doc's going to say, you know what? I'm going to let the society just go as it is and just let it handle itself, there's just so many different ways this story is going to end. And I think that for me is the exciting part of this, that every time we get another piece revealed, every time we get another, just a little bit, it leads to like 3 or 4 more questions and 3 or 4 more. Hey, what about this? What about that? What about this?
Did you I cut you off before, and I apologize, because you were mentioning you were mentioning your own feeling that somebody was manipulating this. Did you think it was somebody other than Dr. Manhattan? Because I don't want that to be lost if you did.
See, that's the thing. I don't know.
Okay.
Because it seems like this seems too well crafted for it not to be somebody planning it. There not to be a puppet master manipulating things. But it doesn't seem like this is something that Manhattan would do. Now, part of me wonders if, we've seen the Comedian in this. Could this have been the Comedian's manipulation? Because you think about it, we know Comedian to be this crazy-esque kind of, physical killer. But he did spend a lot of time around politicians. He did spend a lot of time in Washington. He does know manipulation, and you think back to when they had the whole, back in the Watchmen universe, when they had the whole shutdown of the vigilantes, he wasn't affected by it that much. He actually rolled with the punches. He became a government agent. He worked for the CIA. So for him, having this chaos wouldn't cause him any grief. So part of me wonders if, because you think about it, we saw him land in what I'm assuming is Metropolis Bay, just because of the way those buildings were built. That looked like Metropolis to me. But who knows where he landed, and who knows how long he was there. Part of me does wonder if we're going to find out that the Comedian was behind all that stuff as well. I don't know. That's my front runner right now, but again, I don't know.
Mine is totally Manhattan. The reason why I think it's Manhattan, I think he came here, I think he manipulated the world. I think he either deliberately did that piece because he wanted it closer to the Watchmen world to try and save it, or he did it in his attempt to create a better world. He lost sight of the fact that he's the reason why his world viewed that. He was part of what they were afraid of. The difference between him and Superman, if you're getting through ideologies between the two worlds, is Manhattan was this enigma that, from a public standpoint, was not approachable. He wasn't your guy you would get on camera or had this kind of moral code that, like, you always mentioned with, I'm going back to it again, you're dun-dun-dun with Superman. It sounds so silly to keep going back to that, but what that means, you make a sound effect with Superman, and instantly, when you make it, anybody listening, including me, there's a tone, an ideology, something that makes Superman's like this lily white kind of guy. Did you read the most recent issue of Batman 40? Did you read 40?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'm going to put a spoiler warning on the beginning of this about Batman 40, just because I can't not talk about this. Wonder Woman and Batman are having this talk about Superman with the up, and away, right? And they're kind of joking over the whole thing. By the way, I do want to qualify that I was right.
Hold on. You know what? Pause.
Yes.
Yes, you were right, and I'm glad you were right. And not only am I glad you were right, I loved the final page when Bruce immediately admits what happened, or what did happen, what almost happened.
Oh, yes.
I love the fact that not only did both of those two stop, both of those two acknowledge, hey, this is wrong, we can't do this, but then immediately Bruce told Selina, yeah, hey, something happened, nothing happened, but I was weak, and I loved how that played out. I love that he immediately did that. And as I was reading it, I was like, okay, yes, Sean is right on this. Well, I knew eventually someday we would have this conversation. So I'm very happy that I was wrong in that circumstance.
I'm going to pull back a little bit because I was joking when I said that. I'm glad actually it was some of A and some of B, because I do think there's elements of what you were saying that I really liked that were a part of this. So I think it was like any good writing, you kind of take a look at all angles. And I liked at the end that they had that bit in there, because I think it showed growth for them as a couple. So I think it would have been a missed opportunity not to go to some of the places you were addressing. So I think really the truth is there was some of A and some of B, and I think it just made a better story because of it. Back to where I'm going with this, because it was such a good issue. We could go do a tangent on that right now and just keep going, because Batman 40, if you guys haven't read it, it's phenomenal. Tom King is a god right now. Yes. But because I'm just so digging Batman. But back to this particular story and how Superman relates to that. They, in the up, and away, the two of them were also talking about Superman and kind of the ideology of him in those moments. I think he's one of those characters that has a firm ideology, whereas Dr. Manhattan was freaky. And what I mean is he's scary. This is just like, he's almost like a walking nuclear power. And not that Superman is any less viewed as that kind of power in the DC universe. He isn't. And, there's that whole idea of, it brings it up in this, the idea of there being, why are they merely American heroes? Well, isn't that what was going on in Watchmen as well? They were questioning John as being an American creation, and how do you balance that out in other countries? Does he act on behalf of America? Because he went to the war, remember, during what was going on with the comedian. And those pieces were brought in there. So my question is John bringing this to bear and not understanding the difference between this universe and his is the fact that Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, and really Superman's like the key, I think the central figure of this one, the difference between Superman and him is Superman is a walking ideology. He wasn't. He was completely unapproachable. He was scary. And I loved that about that story, because I thought it was a different sort of mature take on, wow, if there was a Superman like Dr. Manhattan, that was created in, from a lab experiment gone wrong. It was really like you almost combined the stories of the Hulk and Superman together and added, kicked it up to 11 and on the power scale, but he emotionally was completely becoming more and more detached, to the point that his wife was really the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. He was almost alien in a way that Superman is the opposite. He's an alien who became human. John was a human who became alien. They're almost polar opposites in the way that their world was reacted to by them, or the way they reacted to their world, I should say. So I'm feeling that polar opposite is really the central figure of all this. This is spinning out of his playing around with our world in an attempt to make it a better place. I think, if that's his drive, if better place is what he was going for. I do believe it's his manipulations that are causing this, though. Because too many of the things now, especially as you look at in this issue, you said it best. You said this is starting to look like the Watchmen universe. Yes, it is. And I think you're right. It has been manipulated by somebody from there, and I think he was on screen. Here's the thing. If it's a comedian that did it, I think there's a story justification for that. So I can see where you're going from that, and I do think you're right where he landed, because think about it. He popped up in Luther's place. Yeah. So, how did he happen to be there? I don't think I think that's where he landed. So, yeah, I think spot on. You nailed that. I wouldn't be in John's We Trust. If it is the comedian, there's a storytelling reason for it. I want to know more. But my front runner, yours is the comedian, my front runner is Dr. Manhattan. And I feel there's a philosophical justification for it. But I'm, like any story, I'm loving reading this. And if I'm wrong, cool. I just want to read it. Because it's in John's We Trust. John's, whatever reason, there's going to be a good reason for it.
Yeah. Jeff Johns is a name that I never worry about reading books written by him. Sometimes I'm curious as to where they're going to go with it, but he's one of those writers that's on my list that as I'm going through, I come up with theories, I come up with ideas, but if I'm wrong, I know what's going to happen is going to be probably better than what I had in my head. So if I'm wrong about the comedian and it is, Dr. Manhattan, okay, cool. Because I know, as you said, in John's We Trust, I do like how this is getting, thrown in through the different pieces. I love the layout of how this story is getting crafted, where you have that great opening sequence, with, comedian and Veidt. You've got then the bats, then you've got the crazy folks, then you've got the world population, what's going on with them, with thunder, and then you go back to bats again, and Alfred and Rorschach. I love that. The fact that Alfred had to take him to every single room in the manor because Rorschach did not like the size of the rooms. He wanted a smaller room. Doesn't feel comfortable. It's too big, not comfortable. It's like, well, sir, I've taken you every guest room we have, and this is the smallest in the manor. I love that throughout this, and especially the pancakes. Once again, Alfred's doing whatever he can to calm him down. He's like, you made those pancakes. Good pancakes. Happy to whip happy to whip up some more. I absolutely love just how that played out, completely getting Rorschach to let his guard down to the point where he takes off his mask, he jumps in the shower. It was, for me, this was like, man, this is awesome. I absolutely love this, how, again, especially seeing the ending, just how this played out. And plus, we do get to see a little bit more about how, touched in the head Rorschach is.
I do, and I really liked his discomfort over the size of the rooms, and we get, he comes from a very different world than Batman does. I like that we're discovering who he is gradually along the way. And I don't mean just identity. Like, if there's some identity reveal where you're like, okay, it's this character from Watchmen, great. Okay, I'm fine with that. What I like is, and this book's doing it really well with all the characters, they're getting enough screen time that we're starting to discover who these characters are in the mind of Jeff Johns. And as with anything with Jeff Johns, it pulls from the original literature that it came from. Watchmen is a piece of literature. It's one of those comics that I think has not the walls down that comics are just funny books. And I hate to use the term funny books because, to me, fun is one of the key reasons I read comics. So I hate that the funny book term became something that was diminishing of comics. So when I say that, I'm using it in a way that I hate because I really feel like it diminished something that I've always enjoyed since my childhood. And I think it also made it taboo to say fun when it comes to comics, like you're somehow diminishing them. And I'm trying to take that word back because this book was nothing but frickin' fun from cover to cover. And that's the most sincere compliment I can give this book. It was nothing but fun. And I look for that in comics. We had a conversation before with Ted Sikora about Tap Dance Killer. What did I like about Tap Dance Killer so much? Why did I want to have Ted come on the show to talk about it? It's because it's fun. It's a unique property, something different. And I feel like you and I connect in the fact that it might be different things that we see that are fun, but ultimately we enjoy this hobby. We've done this for over 11 years now because it's fun. And when this show stops becoming fun, it means the comics are no longer fun for us. And I don't think that's possible now. I'm 47. If these books are still fun for me at this stage, I think it's going to stay that way. The quality of the creators would have to severely drop at this point for that to become a problem. And I'm thrilled by that. But there is a point to that fun factor in this that I found just really great. I don't know. This event is what I expected, and it's not at the same time. That's something that I think is really great about it. Because is this playing out the way you expected?
I don't know, actually. It's the way, when this first was announced, I had no idea what to expect. So to say, is it playing out the way I expected? Yeah, I have no idea. It's playing out to an amazing story. So I'm absolutely loving it. But as the story goes, and I craft, what about this? What about that? I'll tell you, I 100% did not see the Rorschach Batman thing happening the way it did.
Yeah,
I completely did not see it going that way.
I did not.
So right there, playing not how I expected, but I absolutely loved it. I cheered. I literally cheered out loud. It's one of those things that I was just like, woohoo! Right there as I'm reading, like, oh my God, this is awesome. And it got me so pumped to talk about this that when you said, hey, have you read Doomsday Clock? Like, yes, let's talk about it. Just because I loved that sequence. Some of the stuff that's going on with Veidt and Luthor, I thought that was cool. Didn't see that coming. Did not see Comedian coming at all. And even the fact that I love the fact they show Luthor still, the one news article they're talking about how Luthor's is in surgery at Metropolis General, and his attacker remains in serious but stable condition. And that's got to be Veidt because he got thrown out the window and landed. So only mention of 2 people there. What about the comedian? Did he disappear? Is the comedian somehow... Again, to me, it leads to the fact that maybe the comedian's connected and he's able to get out of this. And you see earlier, they showed that one article about the Rex, about the couple of the heroes who are signing up with some unknown government agency. Again, could be something, but it could be actually... Part of me thinks the comedian is running some type of government agency, or the comedian's doing something, and maybe the comedian's doing it on the orders of John, because Dr. Manhattan pulled him there, and maybe hey, he's doing it on his orders, and the big ringleader is Dr. Manhattan. But I think the comedian has some type of connection.
I don't think Dr. Manhattan is tied with anybody. I think he's a puppet master. And a puppet master in the sense that he's looking down at the world like a little box. And he every so often picks up the string of this marionette. Marionette's probably not the best. Well, Marionette's, I guess, maybe a good choice because Marionette's in this. And moving them around. And I think he's done a lot of manipulations, but I do not think he's running a group. So I don't think he's got a partner. I don't think he's running a group. I think, did he save the comedian? Yeah, and I think he saved the comedian for the same reason that he didn't hurt Marionette. There is a part of John that is human, and I think he felt bad about the death of Blake, so Blake's no longer dead. He stopped Blake from dying in the moment of Blake's death, which is why part of me's thinking this isn't a fake Blake. I think he saved Blake, and I think there's a humanity piece to that. The difference is I think he's skewed far more alien than he is human, whereas I think Superman is skewed far more human than he is alien. Here's the interesting part of this story and why I said earlier that I don't think it's playing out the way that I thought it was going to. When it was originally billed, we were kind of looking at this Doomsday Clock thing as Superman versus Dr. Manhattan, at least the way that it was kind of billed. We're 3 issues in. We haven't seen that. And I love that. I love that we haven't gotten to that point yet. I think, now here's the thing where I think you may be right, I don't know how long Blake's been here. I don't know what the timing looked like. When did John bring him here? Because here's the thing, the rest of the Watchmen just got here. So is it possible Blake just got here recently, but he was yanked out from the past in the Watchmen universe and plopped here now? Maybe. Could he have been here much longer? Maybe. Depending on the timing on how long he's been here, is it possible he's doing his own thing? Yeah. I don't think he's doing it on John's orders, though. I don't think John's working that way. I think John is this godlike power that is so disconnected from people that the closest connection I think he's had to people was when he was living here. And I think he may be living here trying to connect with humanity, trying to rediscover humanity. I don't know. I'm floored by this. I'm loving this so much because a lot's happening. It's very heady. I think the speculation's valid. Everything you're saying, I'm not sitting here saying you're wrong. And if anybody listening is coming across that piece, I think what's happening right now for a lot of us that are reading this, we're developing our own speculations on this, our own justification based on the evidence we're seeing before us, trying to follow that train of thoughts to discover what's right and wrong. I don't really care at all if I'm right or wrong. Like the Batman joke with you before with Batman number 40. We both left off our discussion of Batman 39 in the same place. We really just had faith in Tom King and the story, and if we were both wrong, it didn't matter. What we wanted to see is where the story was going to go next. And we were rooting for the characters that we loved in that story. I'm doing that with this. I'm invested in these characters. Some of these are characters that I have not read in a long time. And some of them are versions now, Rorschach, brand new version of Rorschach. I am fascinated by him. I like every little bit. Okay, he hates small rooms, which means this guy did not come from a place where he had money. He talked about how that one room, the bathroom that he was in, cost more than the entire block, from where he's from. We're learning little bits and pieces through his dialogue that are crafting and fleshing out this character, making him three-dimensional, the same way Alan Moore did through the narrative from Kovacs back in the day. And that's one of the things that I really loved about that series, and I think they're doing such a great job of balancing who each of these characters are. He became obsessed with Rorschach's journal and in many ways started to turn into a modern Rorschach. I want to know more about his story. This is so great in how it's being crafted. And I'm hoping people are enjoying this and giving it to people, because I really think this is something where if somebody read Watchmen before, they should be handed this. And is everybody going to like it because of that? No. But I think, here's the thing, I think your people that have issues with there being a Watchmen sequel are your comic fans. And I mean your comic fans who are Alan Moore fans who are like, you can't touch Alan Moore's work. And here's the thing, you're 100%, I'm saying that in a snarky way and I apologize, because here's the thing. Every one of us have our own collections. We have certain writers that are our favorites and certain things that we want to keep in their little bubble. Cool. You are 100% valid in doing that. I look at this, though, and I go, this is a great story to give that casual crowd. Because you know what? They don't care about that. Truthfully, they aren't bogged down in our nonsense. And we as comic fans need to remember that. People who are outside of our world, who don't have the history with these characters and these stories, they're ones we got to take a look at and go, is this a great story? I think this is a great story. This is something I would not hesitate to hand somebody who said to me, I really enjoyed Watchmen. I'm a fan of DC heroes. I kind of want to read a comic right now. Read this. Yeah. I would give this to them because they're not going to have that luggage, that baggage. They're going to go, oh, cool. Wow, Rorschach's in this, but I thought he died in Watchmen. And they'll enjoy this story along the way. Comedian, oh, he's here in this? They're not going to care. They're going to enjoy that. We're the ones that get bogged down in that. And I'm just as guilty. So if anybody out there's that Watchmen fans going, listen, Sean, you're insulting me. No, I'm not. I have my issues too. You guys, if you've listened to this show for any amount of episodes, it's pretty clear I have. We argue over the dumbest things on these shows. And it's because of the fact that we're those diehard comic fans. But
and here's the thing with us. If anybody else were to write Secret Six, you and I would be upset over that, because there's only one person who should write Secret Six going forward, and that's Gail Simone. Flat out. That's, now if they, and I know Secret Six existed before she did it, but once she started writing it, once she created it, once she made her own, that was it. I don't think I think I would be one of those kind of people if if they announce even if they announce someone that another writer that's on my list. If they say if they were to say Jeff Johns is going to write Secret Six, I still would be like, what? But it's Gail. That's Gail's work. You can't give that to somebody else. She's the only one who can touch that. So I understand people's thing with the Alan Moore and the Watchmen. I kind of have that. But on the flip side of that,
Except, can I say something about your example?
Okay, go on.
Because I think it's a good example. Because I was sitting there looking at myself, I was like, do I feel that way? First of all, the best thing you can do to make me happy right now is to tell me that Gail Simone has been tapped to do another Secret Six, because it's something unique. But here's the thing. We're diehard fans of her run on Secret Six. Here's the thing. My first exposure to her was her run on Birds of Prey. And from that's when I became more familiar with her work at Marvel and work before that. It's the second she jumped on Birds of Prey, the first issue, I'm like, oh, this is something different. And I really recognized the talent and the different storytelling that she was doing there. I think some of your favorite writers, when you connect with a writer, they have a unique voice. And I recognized her unique voice. To this day, I love that unique voice. Where I'm going with this is, there's fans out there who are writers now, who are up and coming, who were fans of her take on Secret Six. I don't know that there isn't somebody out there who couldn't do their own take on it and really make me love it. And I don't mean that in any way, shape, or form as diminishing. I think what ends up happening at some point in time, we're all influenced by the work that we enjoyed. Gail was influenced by the work that she enjoyed, and it still is to this day. Here's where I'm connecting with you. I'm as torn over that as I would be on somebody doing James Robinson's Starman. I think I would be very tentative if they announced a brand new Secret Six or Starman series, and I'm linking both of them together because it's the same thing you're saying right now, and it's probably the best comparison for me. But if somebody was like a James Robinson devotee and really loved the series, but then had their own spin on it and could do something modern with it that, I don't know, could make me a believer, I would love to read more Starman. And I would. It's just you got to get the right person that could do it. And I think there are people out there who could do another Secret Six. I do. You got to be really careful with that. But I think that's true of any character, isn't it? Can you put anybody on as a writer of Batman? No. They're just not going to get it right. I think you need the right people. I think those books in particular, because it was a time when there were certain characters in there that were only in that book. You know what I mean? So she really was able to craft her own playground. And she had two great artists that, really connected with her in how the stories were being told. I just thought it was just a great creative exercise in insanity that, you're right, it'd be hard to replicate. And I think that would be the mistake, trying to replicate it. I think you need to do your own version of it. Here's the thing. I'm loving Birds of Prey right now, the comic. I'm not comparing it to Gail's work. It's its own thing. And I think that's what I would need from a new Secret Six. I need it to be something that understands the spirit of what Secret Six was, but is not trying to be Gail Simone light. Starman, if they did another Starman, I would need something that understands the spirit of Starman, but is not trying to be James Robinson light. And it's got to be somebody really talented, or you shouldn't do it. I think we're saying the same thing. I got to it a lot longer than you did.
We have a habit of doing that, don't we?
No, I have a habit of doing that.
Well, it's going to be nice.
I'll throw myself under the bus. It's okay. But it's fun to talk about this stuff, because I think it is actually probably the most appropriate time to talk about this, because the real thing out there that's been that buzz, I'm not hearing much of it right now, though, because I don't hear a lot of people reading this saying they shouldn't have done this. That was before it came out. And I think that crowd just isn't reading it, or is reading it now and is silent. And I think there's a little bit of A and B there. I think some people were just like, hey, you shouldn't do that. Oh, wow, I like this. Yeah. Or there's people who just said, you shouldn't do this, and they stuck to their guns and they didn't read it. And I respect that in a certain way. I mean, I think if you're like, hey, I'm an Alan Moore fan, I really don't want to read somebody else's take on it. I look at it as Miracle Man was one of my favorite Alan Moore series. And Neil Gaiman took over afterwards. And he didn't try to be Alan Moore. He built off of Alan Moore and delivered something amazing. And it wasn't that it was better than what Alan Moore did. It was every bit as good and unique, but understood the spirit of what came before. That's why I'm saying what I did about Secret Six and Starman. It's because I can look back at Miracle Man and go, boy, at the end of Alan Moore's Miracle Man run, I feel that's contained. Completely contained. When you read Neil Gaiman's stuff, it is a brand new story. It builds upon what Alan Moore did before, but I still feel the Moore stuff is very contained and its own thing. Yet the Gaiman stuff's literature. I mean, it's so, and to me, every bit is valid and exciting and a part of some of the greatest comic material I've ever read in my life. So I think there's a point to doing like what you're doing with the Doomsday Clock and making it work. You just need to be really careful who does it. This is an example of being really careful who does it and delivering something that is just blowing my mind and is not at all what I expected, because I haven't seen the two characters yet other than one's on screen, and we've seen references to Superman. We have not seen the Pier 6 brawl we were expecting from this, and I think it's because you can't do it the way that I was thinking back then. It's what we said. This is going to be a philosophical piece between the two, and I can't wait to see where this goes. I think you hit on so much here today in this discussion about how there's elements of this that are connecting you to Watchmen, and I think you're right. And I don't know. I can't wait for issue 4. And this is going to be one we're going to talk about the whole way, because I think there's going to be events in each one where we're going to need to discuss it.
Yeah. Now, you want to hear something interesting?
Go for it.
While we were having our conversation today, I heard you say something that got me thinking a thread that had never entered my head before. You know, it's when you said about with, Dr. Manhattan bringing back Comedian. He died. He didn't want him to die, so he brought him back. Got me thinking about somebody else who died in the Watchmen universe that, John actually respected his convictions and actually didn't, but had a direct hand in his death, a person who is a conspiracy theorist, and now we have this conspiracy theory running rampant in the DC universe. What if Rorschach's behind this Superman and anti-Batman thing? What if John brought Rorschach from the Watchmen universe into this universe because he felt bad for the guy dying? The second Rorschach hit the ground, he sees what's going on with these superheroes, recognizes, hey, this is what happened to my universe. I'm not going to let it happen. And he starts running this whole anti-hero campaign. And I just literally had that thought pop in my head during our conversation today.
I get why you're thinking that. I'm still sticking with my theory. It's Dr. Manhattan. I don't think Rorschach's brought back. I don't think Rorschach's back. I think the new Rorschach is Rorschach right now. I don't think Kovacs is here. I could be wrong.
Yeah. I'm saying this, but I literally, as I said, just literally thought of this maybe 10, 15 minutes ago.
Remember, John didn't kill the comedian.
Right.
John.
But if anybody in the universe, Rorschach would have been the easiest one for him to bring back. Because he literally is the one who destroyed him.
But he believed in destroying him. And that's why I'm saying I'm going to say I don't agree with that. I'm not saying you're wrong. There's a difference between saying you're wrong and I disagree with you. I don't see it. I see why you see it. And
let me clarify my position. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying 100%, I think this is what happened. This is a what if.
Sure.
Really, I honestly don't know if that's the case. And I don't even know if I believe that yet. But this is something that popped in my head just now. I'm like, what if? I wonder. And as you're talking, as we're going on, it's in the back of my head, I'm thinking all this stuff. Conspiracy theorist. We talk about how this universe is becoming more like the Watchmen universe, and then I happen to flash on as I'm going through the pages. I see one of those signs, and it reminded me immediately of the Rorschach signs. I'm like, I wonder. So that's why I threw it out there right now for people's consideration. What if? What if Rorschach's back?
I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
I think that's the one of my favorite parts about this, and I know I said it earlier, and I'm going to repeat myself, is the fact that once you learn one piece, there's like two or three more pieces, two or three more mysteries unfolding. Like we see kind of the Rorschach, the current Rorschach, with his flashback where he was right there, feet away from dying. He literally survived by the skin of his teeth. I'm willing to bet the front part of his car got cut off by the energy blast that was pulled that alien in. So you kind of see where he's going, what's going on. And he's even mentions in that scene where, I got to get home to mom and dad. So somebody probably passed away. Again, we're still leaning towards possibly this is the son of the psychiatrist that was treating or dealing with Rorschach from the prison. That's my front runner on this for who his identity is. But again, even though we get this little piece, we still have more of we still have more mystery of who he is, what he's about.
Agreed. I'm enjoying all of this, and I'm standing on my theory that I believe Dr. Manhattan, I think there's a reason he is the great and powerful Oz in this right now. We haven't seen the curtain lifted and what's really going on with him. And I think when we see the curtain lifted and what's really going on with him, I think he's so disconnected. I think this is the man who is sitting alone on Mars. I think that's who's running the show right now. Now, could I be wrong? Yeah. It's speculation. That's the fun of speculation. I'm pretty stuck on my theory right now, but you might be equally stuck on yours, and there's people listening to this that might have theories that are equally stuck on it. And I think I do what every reader does. When you get ideas in your head, you validate them with evidence from storytelling that makes you so convinced you're right that you're going to fight for that. And that's geeky comic debates come from that. The best of them do. So I enjoy that part of it. So, that's kind of where my head's at on this. I love the debate. I love that when I'm talking through this, I'm not being overly apologetic to you. I really feel that there's a lot of openness to this story right now that hasn't been defined. So when you say certain things, I'm sitting here going, okay, it's a possibility. I don't know. I mean, and that's what you're exploring. You're kind of doing, here's the difference between you and me, I think, right now, and I think this is probably the most accurate piece I can say. I think very early on in this, I crafted in my mind what was going on here, and I've been looking for evidence for that, and I've been sticking to it. Not because I'm digging my heels in, it's just because I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying looking for that evidence. So I'm not looking at elsewhere the way you are. Whereas I think you're more open to, could it be this? Could it be this? Could it be that? And that's equally valid and probably something you're enjoying as a thrill ride on this in the same way I'm enjoying my thrill ride. So I don't think either method is invalid. I think it's just you're more open than I am right now. I really am. I know what my tunnel is right now, and I'm enjoying the tunnel. I don't have a lot of reason to step outside it because there's a richness to my tunnel the same way there's a richness to your experience. I'm enjoying this conversation greatly because I'm seeing aspects of the story through your eyes that I can't really see right now because they're not my focus. And that part's fun. So the conversation here was great today and that's why I was stopping myself a lot of times when you were saying certain things and clarifying. I'm not saying you're wrong, because I'm not. There's been times where I've told you flat out on this show many times, Jim, I think you're wrong. This isn't one of those. I really feel that your experience is interesting to me. And I'm loving these discussions in a unique way to some other ones that we've had, just because I'm seeing some of this journey through your eyes, and it's fun. So that's kind of where I'm at on this. And I think this is a unique story. I don't know how I think we're going to probably follow every single issue of this on the show because we need to.
Yes, I think so.
Not because we're forced or beholden to. You and I tend to pick things on the show to do issue by issue organically, just because we're like, I want to have this, we got to talk about this. I think this is going to be one of those every issue because I think the impact of these 12 issues at the end are going to be huge. And I can't wait to see where this goes.
Holy caffeine!
Want to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434. or Dr. Norge on Skype. It's always available on the show website in any of our show notes. So please, we love having you part of the show. Listener voicemails, there's one I saw that just came in. We will put that on our next episode. Also want to remind everyone about our email account. It's ragingbullets@gmail.com. If you want to email us with your comments, I'll start implementing those back into the show. We haven't done emails actually in a few years where we've been doing them. So ragingbullets@gmail.com is the email address for our podcast. So if there's something where you're like, hey, I don't really like doing voicemails and things like that, go ahead and send an email. I really want to get your comments a part of our podcast. Ragingbullets.com is our show website. That's the first place I post news about what's going on with our podcast episodes. It does feed into Twitter. It feeds into our Facebook page. We also are part of an amazing Facebook group community. And if you haven't joined Facebook group communities before, this is an amazing group of people. I highly recommend it. There's 2 of them currently. We had one that they had cut out because of, I don't know why, they had deleted us. So I fought with them to restore it. But in the time that they restored it, the other one we put a brand new one in place almost immediately, and it became established. So in talking to all the people, they're like, let's just move forward with this new group. So if you look at our show notes, the link to the proper Facebook group community is there. If you're looking on there and you see one that has a larger number of people, that's the old group. I'm not going to shut it down because, quite frankly, there's still messages being posted there. But the new one is really the main one that we're using. I really, in the end, I like that people are connecting and talking positively about comics. I really think the people, whatever one you joined, the thing that works about it is the fact that the people there are just great. I genuinely mean that. I say that with fondness. It's their community. When I say we're a part of it, we started it, sure, but in the end, it's what the people that come there do with it that really makes a community. The community, that's the key word. The community makes it theirs. We're not that community. I am a member of the community. I'm a proud member of the community. But I thank all of the people. Jeremy, I always mention Jeremy's name, but and this isn't diminishing Jeremy's role because Jeremy took a lot of the lead of it. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the quality people that are just there daily, weekly, monthly, pop in. Everyone who pops in, I'm recognizing names. I know who people are. I know their philosophies on things. It's just a fun group. And they're people who are all fans, and it's not a snarky group. People, if we've ever had arguments on the group, which have been few and far between in the number of years that it's been in place, everyone acts as like kind of a moderator and just kind of jumps in and tries to resolve the issue. And I think it's the reason why I can't tell you the last time I've seen one there, because people are quick to kind of calm down the conversation and get it back on track to being an honest debate and not personal. I think that's the key. They're never personal debates. They're hearty fan debates. And I think it's something that's safe and it sticks to rich conversation. I want to just thank all the people there because I honestly am proud to be associated with it on any level. And it's something that's different to be able to say that. It's kind of the comic fan I am. And I don't know, just wanted to shout that out because I just think it's something that's unique. You and I are also, we have a Google Plus page for the podcast, so please feel free to connect with us there. You and I are both on the PlayStation Network. I'm Raging_Bullets, your Sensei _whatnot. Please feel free to add us. I am on the Nintendo Network. I have a Nintendo Switch, so if you want, email me at ragingbullets@gmail.com if you want to be added to that. I'm happy to send you a friend code. I don't know, basically we want to connect with you however you want to connect with us, so thank you for that. Sponsoring this episode, of course, is DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what's going on at DCBService.com?
Well, DCBS has great deals on Apama, the undiscovered animal, #1. Tap Dance Killer, #1. Both of them 30% off, only $2.79.
Over at InStockTrades.com, my friend, I mentioned it before. Absolute Wonder Woman by Azzarello and Chang, and I apologize for any name butchery there. 50% off, only $62.50. This is the second volume of a series. I loved the first one. I read it cover to cover. Love the visuals collected in that absolute format. House of Secrets, the Bronze Age Omnibus hardcover, is 50% off, only $62.50. I'm a huge fan of classic horror comics. This is a lot of work I've never read, and that's what I'm loving about these omnibuses. I've read broken issues of a lot of the things that I've gotten, a lot of the Golden Age and Silver Age and Bronze Age stuff in this. There's no way I'm sitting down and being able to read these all cover to cover right now. What's happening is I'm gradually reading one at a time, just as my mood strikes me, and feeling free to put a bookmark in and go on to another one. And I'm loving that. They're there for me. They're great At home, they're great coffee table books. And what I mean by that is it's not that, I'm just browsing through them. I'm reading them. I'm just enjoying the fact that I can get the comics bound in these great formats. There's been a great group of people over the years that have been, actually, when we were at Comic Geek Speaks forum, when we were part of that forum, and I'm sure it's still going on to this day, there were people who were taking their comic collections and binding them and putting them in bound hardcover collections, because they were making their own omnibuses. I'm loving now that I've never done that, but I should take it back. I did do it once. There was something that I really wanted bound, and I sent it in, and I got it bound and loved it. So I take it back. I did do it once. I'm loving the fact that I didn't have these issues, so there's a difference in this case. But I want the same concept. This is that comic binding for people who don't have the issues. And I think that's the nice part, is this is a different audience. And I'm glad that they're putting this in there. I'm really looking forward to enjoying reading both of those volumes. Reading one again, because I read all of that Wonder Woman run, and reading this one. So thank you, InStockTrades.com. Our next episode, Jim, we had some content we were going to do on this episode. We were going to start talking about the Young Animals and DC crossover, DC Universe crossover that's going on, the Milkman Wars. And we are going to do the first 3 issues of that on our next episode. We're also going to talk about Nightwing, and we're going to do a Speeding Bullets segment. So that's going to be our next episode. What Jim and I are doing now is we were looking at doing bi-weekly back-to-back recordings. We haven't abandoned that, but just because of our crazy schedules, now that we've gotten back on track, we seem to be enjoying recording weekly again. And we've gotten back on that cycle, and I really am enjoying it. So I think we're going back to that format of just trying to get weekly recordings in. They may be released a couple days after that weekly mark, just because I need time to edit. But you and I seem to be back on the Sunday sweet spot of getting in some recording and really enjoying it. So we're kind of letting this organically be the way we do things, just because it feels right. And so we will see everyone next week with a brand new episode. Feel free to call in or send us your emails. We will see you soon.
Bye.
Organized crime or a thing. Met in May, now I'm running the ring. My gig is tap straight to the point. Collect my fee or I bust up the joint. I am a darling, mischievous pixie. I am a wraith and I'm getting my kicks. See if you're not on time to pay your dues, you're gonna meet the soles of my shoes. Don't want your love, don't got the time. I'm the tap dance killer. Where's the next crime? Tapping away till my next killing day. The tap dance killer, a child at play. Toe, heel, step into the room. Dig, tip, ticket-a-tap. Boom. I tried to go straight, it made me hate it. Nothing ever beat the sound of street at my feet. Don't look to me to be your guide. Sometimes the blood only makes me slide, 'cause I got rhythm tapping in my shoes, and something that'll cure all your blues. Don't want your love, don't got the time. I'm the tap dance killer. Where's the next crime? Tapping away till my next killing day. The tap dance killer, a child at play. Zip it up with body, but I'm with it. I did that. I was ever did that. tappity ba da bop wa, tappity tap whippy ba da da. Ha! Whippity zip ba, you ba ba dee da wa da da da. Don't want your love, don't got the time. I'm the tap dance killer. Where's the next crime? Tapping away till my next killing day. The tap dance killer, a child at play. Don't want your love tonight. I'm the tap dance killer. I'm the tapping around and around and around, round. No matter the venue, they all know that I'll tap, jab, stop, shoot, kill 'em with style.